everyone, welcome back to the Fish Cake Valentine. It's Katie here. Today's video is a second in a two-part series. It's entitled Rock Steady. It's involving a German chemist and his first-generation American son, Carl Rock. They're both named Carl Rock. Dr. Carl Rock was the first video, and this video today is Carl Wolfgang Rock, which there's a big difference, I think. I mean, in their personalities especially. When I first found these papers, most of them belonged to Dr. Carl Rock, which was in the previous video. And I found these several items mixed in with Dr. Carl Rock's. I did not know until I got home and further researched and found out that Dr. Carl Rock had a son also named Carl Rock. Because at first I was like, did he come here? Did he come here to go to school? I found out later on that those weren't his, that it was his son, so. One of the first things I found in the box are these notebooks.
These notebooks are very thin. Their once vibrant covers have browned with age. Their edges are disintegrating and have a tendency to crumble if not handled carefully. Carl Rock, English A2, April 27, 1925. Mr. Robinson. As you can see, the ink is embedded into the page and the handwriting is very deliberate.
The first thing I noticed about these was that their handwriting is very beautiful. I would kill for cursive skills like this. I don't know who taught him cursive, but they did a really good job.
Moving on, we are going to look online on FamilySearch.org. Okay, I type in Carl Rock, and then I put in New York, because he was born there. The first thing I see is Carl and his family on the 1940 census. He's 36 and is married to Bertha, and has two kids, Lucy and George, and is listed as a commercial aviator. When I go back to the search results, I see an entry for a passport application. Okay, let's click on it. Let's load it. It looks like Carl was applying to travel abroad to Germany. I, Carl Wolfgang Rock, a native and loyal citizen of the United States, hereby apply to the Department of State at Washington for a passport. I solemnly swear that I was born at New York City in the state of New York, on or about the 18th day of November, 1903. That my father, Carl G.L.W. Rock, was born in Germany, is now residing in Stapleton, Staten Island, New York. That he emigrated to the United States from the port of Sydney, Australia, on or about the 20th of November, 1888. Scrolling down, you can see that Carl signed the Oath of Allegiance. There's a picture over here. I thought that was Carl. That's not Carl, that's some guy named Peter. If you go back, you see that there's another page. Zoom in. On the second page, you can see that there's a description of the applicant. Age 17 years, 5'8", small mouth, oval chin, light hair, ruddy complexion, and an oblong face. Oh, and blue eyes and a straight nose. And his mother vouched for him as a citizen of the United States. She's known him for 17 years. Interesting. There's Carl. I don't know why I thought the other guy was him, but this definitely looks more like the pictures that I have. It also looks like he applied for an amendment to his passport on November 12, 1921. Looks like he added Austria to his travel list. Returning to the search results, I find a record of Carl enlisting in the State National Guard on November 4th, 1922. He was 18 years old. Carl was featured in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Sunday, February 15th, 1931. It reads, Carl Rock, who pilots a passenger plane on the Eastern Division of the Transcontinental and Western Air Express, although not a native Philadelphian, is well known in flying circles in this vicinity through his association with the Ludington Flying Service 3 years ago. Rock, who is a graduate of Columbia University, where he played football in 1926, 1927, and 1928, gets into Central Airport Camden once or twice a week on his way to and from Columbus, Ohio. He began his flying career in the United States Army in 1923 and now holds a first lieutenant's commission in the Air Corps Reserve. After leaving the Army, he returned to school to complete his education, and it was not until he was bruised in a football game that he decided flying was much safer. For a time, he flew a Pitcairn, or a department store, and barnstormed around generally. In this city, he was engaged mostly in student instruction. He is 27 years old, married, and lives in Columbus, Ohio. Barnstorming. To give exhibitions of stunt flying, participate in airplane races, etc. It became popular in the 1920s as a form of entertainment, where pilots performed dangerous stunts to impress the masses. Even Charles Lindbergh got his start barnstorming initially. I wonder if Carl was in one of those flying circuses.
So when I was researching initially, I found a bunch of newspaper clippings. To be honest, I did not get these with the papers I found at the flea market. I actually found them online. Somebody must have got to them before I did and sold all of them on eBay, but...
These paper clippings date back to September 27, 1926. They are the clippings that Carl saved in an envelope and are very fragile to the touch. Legion Air Circus attracts 12,000. Aviators race and perform stunts at Garden City, New York. Legion Air Circus AIDS Relief Fund. Says Lieutenant Rock wins race. It's a bonus clipping of Carl in which a woman hands him books as he grins for the camera. Sends book by plane for Sailor Library. It states that Roger Bat Taylor wanted to send We by Lindbergh on the morning westbound airmail plane. Sure, I'll deliver it, Carl says. So Carl was an airmail pilot too. Now these clippings with Carl's face. Wins National Air Race, Lieutenant Carl W. Rock of Mitchellfield, Long Island, is pictured after he had won the National Guard Trophy at Philadelphia. Here he is again in the Decatur Herald. He sure looks happy. And again, the Shamokin News Dispatch. Finish pole, Lieutenant Carl Rock rounding it to victory. And in the Evening News in Harrisburg, PA, New York wins in air contests, Philadelphia. Lieutenant Carl W. Rock finished the National Guard race, nearly 2 minutes ahead of his nearest rival, with an average speed for the 7 laps of the 12-mile course of 93.08 miles an hour. He was so intent on bringing New York's colors in first, he forgot how many laps he had flown, and took another turn around the course for good measure. He even made it in Time magazine. Heavy rains did not improve such arrangements as the city fathers of Philadelphia had made for the biggest aeronautical event of the year, the National Air Races. Fathers had selected a tract of land called Model Farms, 4 feet below the level of the Delaware River on the southwest edge of town, Last week's pilots and spectators concluded that it was a model farm for rice growing only. Nevertheless, the races went on. New York Guardsmen, led by chunky, grinning Lieutenant Carl W. Rock of Miller Field, won the National Guard Trophy race. It's Mitchell Field, and who are you calling chunky?
I like how there's different angles of him going, hey, I won the race. Hey, who wants a picture next? Who wants my picture? I'm so cool. He's very cool. And yeah, he knew it. I'm gonna give him that. He is very cool. I think he liked being the center of attention. I think he liked the idea that he was the best at what he chose to do, entertaining people, making the newspaper. You kind of get to see that pilots were heroes to people and pilots were entertaining to people, and that's what people did because, before the internet, what do? You know what I'm saying? We survived. Anyways, so this letter.
This letter was addressed to Carl from a William McKiernan from Langley Field, Virginia, dated October 12, 1927. It's held together by a nail. How manly. Dear Carl, immediately upon receipt of your letter, I wrote to Lieutenant Ladd, a good friend of mine, about your case, and the enclosed tells its own story. Carl, I wish something sure could be done, but I don't see how, and I can only advise you to wait until the new regulation is published. Keep your eyes peeled for the new regulation, and for the love of Mike, get your boss to keep track of your time, so that you may be able to have a certified copy. Whether you are jinxed or not, can't say, but it appears that things have surely broken wrong for you this year. But cheer up, they may improve as time goes onward. A heavy gale just blew all the lights out in the quarters, so I must continue by candlelight, and that's far from pleasant. I don't expect to be up around your way for a stay until around Thanksgiving time, and that is not far off now and then. Buck up, big boy, and remember, I am your friend, and if I find a loophole or the new regulation comes out, I will surely help you. Best wishes to all the bunch. Write to me often. Your friend, Bill McKiernan. There was an attached letter from the War Department from Lieutenant Ladd, saying basically the same thing. He writes, I believe that within a short time, a new regulation will be issued by the War Department, which will authorize the rating of individuals in proper status, who have had a certain number of official flying hours.
I really was excited to have this letter. I think it's really awesome that I have proof that he was trying so hard to become a pilot, that he just wanted to be rated. He wanted to be the best in his field, which I think he ended up doing.
I'm not sure what rating Carl needed to secure, but I do know he went on to have a successful career as a pilot, as shown in these New York passenger and crew lists. I found Carl mentioned again. Pilots on coast-to-coast line. These men will be at the controls of the multi-motored transport planes when the Transcontinental Air Transport opens service July 8th. There he is standing in line third from the left. Carl is mentioned again in the San Bernardino County Sun in June 1929. Planes on Santa Fe's air rail line will begin daily flight on July 8th. Big tri-motor ships to carry 16 passengers in cabins. It lists Carl as a first pilot. I noticed that the article is next to a picture of Charles Lindbergh, that there's more to the article than I initially thought. Lindbergh sets date for inaugurating of service. Carrying 16 passengers, the big all-steel tri-motor planes of the Transcontinental Air Transport will begin daily flights over the San Bernardino Valley on July 8th. According to a report by Colonel Charles A. Lindbergh, the planes, equipped with radio communication between the pilot and meteorologist on the landing fields, will fly from Los Angeles to Winslow on the first hop on the trip east. Further down the article it reads, Colonel Lindbergh charted the airlines, and he purchased the equipment for both the air and the landing fields, and selected the pilot personnel himself, all of whom, quote, are outstanding aviators with long training. So you're telling me Charles Lindbergh selected Carl himself? Wow. This article was trying to ease the fears of the public about the safety of flying, listing all the advancements made, such as two-way radio between the pilots and meteorologists, the promise of upkeep of the planes, and the best pilots America had to offer. Another quote from the article states, "The selection of pilot personnel has occupied a period of several months and has covered the entire United States. As a result, the average flying time of our first pilots, Carl, is about 3,000 hours, including an average of 500 hours on trimotors alone." Incredible. 15 years later, Carl made the paper again, this time for committing an act of heroism. Air Medal for Homefront Hero. Captain Carl Rock, chief pilot of Colonial Airlines, receives the Air Medal, rarely awarded to civilians, in recognition of his skill and coolness in successfully landing a military transport plane, which caught fire after a takeoff, saving 5 persons on board and preventing loss of plane.
I mean, how cool was he to win an Air Medal? I mean, he just can't get any cooler, and I'm kind of annoyed by it, actually. I mean, who has the confidence to do this stuff?
The last article I find is in the early 1950s, stating that Carl was promoted to operations manager of Colonial Airlines.
I really don't have an ending for Carl. I was unable to find an obituary. I only found his gravestone. There was no more information, there was no memorial. So I really don't know what happened between 1954 and 1974. But I suspect that he had a wonderful life. I mean, that's the hope anyways. Carl really inspired me. He was so determined to succeed at becoming a pilot. He made a lifelong career out of his love for aeronautics, a National Air Race winner, a recipient of the Air Medal, and one of the first pilots to fly for trimotors. I almost can't imagine being so confident in your ability to fly planes that you literally fly into the unknown. You know, I admire him for learning his craft so well. And when he was told no, he kept going and kept trying. I really hope you enjoyed this set of videos. I think it's the classic American story, you know. Don't forget to hit like and the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos. I'll see you next time.